Hi, this is a case study where an error similar to invalid files can be seen in the logs when sending multipart MIME documents via the HTTP connector. We will take a look at the demo process, investigate the cause, and check for potential solutions. My name is Al, and thank you for joining. So, is this issue relevant to your case? Well, if you're sending known good files and the remote server, once the file goes through a process, rejects it with invalid files, and if your file names are rather long, and if the issue goes away if you test the process with shorter names, or if it's intermittent, if your file name varies, if it falls below the threshold and it goes through, if it goes over, it starts failing, then chances are this video will be able to help you. So let's have a look at what the process looks like. I built myself a little demo process here. It has stored PNG data. Your process will most likely have something dynamic coming in, and it gets base64 decoded. For my case, that doesn't necessarily apply to yours. Properties are set, it's stored, and then in the second branch we set the header parameters there. Here we can see I've picked a rather long name for my file to trigger the issue. However, my HTTP client is able to take in folded and unfolded values, so it will not produce an error. However, it will still show you what it looks like when the file name is too long, and then once we rectify the issue, how it gets brought back in line. So if you do need to familiarize with this sort of process, there's an excellent article written in the Boomi community. It's called How to Use Map Json to Multipart Form Data MIME in Data Process. Search for it. There are examples, lots and lots of information, and I found it really useful myself personally. So let's go back to the process. Let's run it, a test run, see what it looks like when it reaches the HTTP client connector. Here we go. Okay, so if we check step source data, we can see the payload and the headers, and the content disposition specifically has now dipped over into the new line. And this is absolutely acceptable. This is how it's been defined. And this is the set of rules it's following. And even there, it mentions that lines in internet email header fields are folded according to these folding rules. And even there, it mentions this makes long parameter values problematic. And the RFC 822 step can be seen here, just talks in depth of how they're separated, what characters are used, and so on and so on. It's all very well that it's according to the protocols and standards, but if your remote endpoint is rejecting it, it doesn't help your case. And what can we do in this case? Often I've seen people simply shorten the file name and call it a day and run with this sort of process. But if you have some other systems downstream processing these files and relying on these specific file names, then there's no way around it but to try and find a solution for it. You could, in the data process step, add another step where you could find and replace those specific characters defined in the standard. Or in my case, I'm going to use a Groovy script. So it's identical in the first step, but we've added an additional step, custom scripting Groovy 1.5. And here it will look for those specific characters and it will unfold this for us so that it can be sent down to the HTTP connector in one piece, not in a new line. I'll have the full example of this script shown later in the video. So if we run this again, save, test. Here we go. If we'll check step source data now, payload, and content disposition form data now is in one line. And here is the Groovy script in full. As you can see, it's removing specific characters in the MIME header. The script is provided as is. It works for me. It doesn't necessarily or might not necessarily work for your case, depending on the amount of headers. Other bits is just a simple and straightforward replace, find and replace twice. However, your mileage might vary, so I'd recommend thoroughly testing it in the lower environment again and again, or perhaps even improving the script not to go outside of the headers, not to inadvertently change something in the payload in the actual body of the actual file. Yep, and this is how it's implemented. Just another step. Custom scripting Groovy 1.5, paste it in, and it is done. So you can see before it's split across two lines. After implementing the script, it's now all in one single line. So just to recap the issue, if the file name is longer than 22 characters, the process folds the content disposition parameter over into two lines as per standardized rules. However, if the remote endpoint is unable to unfold this parameter on its side, there currently is no way to instruct the process not to fold the parameter via the UI. Therefore, a find and replace workaround has to rectify this behavior. There is an enhancement idea submitted internally to allow a toggle setting for this behavior, and if there is enough traction behind it, this may be implemented in the UI or an Atom properties level. So I hope you found this video useful, and thank you for your time.